So hi everyone, I've got a gentleman with me who is currently living in Istanbul, Turkey, and he will basically tell us a little bit about himself. But thank you again for tuning into Career Chats with Mel.
Yeah, so I grew up many moons ago in Lotus River, close to Grassy Park, or right next to Grassy Park. Used to live in the flats there. Back then it was a different type of struggle, but similar to what there is now in terms of gangsterism and unemployment. I went to Park Road Primary, spent most of my primary school in the athletics team. I had a close group of friends that we used to run around in the flats. We did naughty things, but it was innocent naughty. And then, like life back in Lotus back then, so I still have family that lives in Lotus River. My sister and her nephews, her kids, they still live there. And life back then was a bit different to what it is now. But that's normal. I think what was a positive aspect for me growing up while I was still in primary school was that my mom, she got retrenched from her work, and then instead of looking for a new job, she decided to stay at home so that she could be there for my sister and I, which helped, I think, because it forced me specifically to go home after school and not to go out and catch on nonsense. So I was supposed to come home, I was supposed to do my homework. So that helped grounded me in terms of trying to stay on a path that was a pleasant path. And then after that, I went to high school, to Wynberg Senior Secondary. So not Witebooma, the one before Witebooma, Abbey Road.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to get in there as well because one of the teachers was a neighbor that also lived in Lotus River. And she put in a good word for me, and then I was able to go to that school as well. And then my friends went to Zukoevlei because that's in the area. Or to, I think, was the Grassy Park High?
Yes.
Yes, there was a Grassy Park High, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, so they either went to Grassy Park High or to Witebooma. I mean, Zukoevlei, then I learned to Wynberg. I had to make new friends, I had to reestablish myself. Then my mom was at home, and yeah, I stayed indoors most of the time. Only could go out after homework was done, after chores was done, and then I could go play outside. I played a lot of putt cricket, soccer. It was fun growing up in the flats because everyone knew each other. All the moms used to look out for each other, for the other kids, and it was a pleasant time. And it was still gangsterism, so that still happened, but not at level as what is experienced these days.
Yeah.
And after that, I did well at high school. I went to Cape Peninsula, to Cape Tech, or CPUT, what's called now. I took a field in IT because at the time they were looking, the industry was growing, and they were hiring lots of IT capable people. So I had no interest in IT at all. I had no interest in IT. That was not something I enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
But I did it to get a job afterwards.
Yeah.
So it was strategic from my point of view.
Yes.
So I went into IT. I did as well as what I could without having a big interest in the field. And straight after tech, I was fortunate enough to find a job with the Fushini Group.
Okay.
While I was at tech, sorry, you must tell me if I need to stop or carry on or whatever. I'm just
no, that's
going on.
Fine.
I was going to mention that while I was studying at tech, I studied for 4 years. I worked different casual jobs. So I worked at ShopRite Checkers in Rondebosch. Me and my buddy that also used to live in the area in Lotus River. we worked there for 4 years, 4 to 5 years, 4 years. And yeah, so like during the week we'd study, and then weekends we'd go work. So like sometimes after tech on a Friday, I'd go straight to work in Rondebosch, and then get home like about 7 o'clock after the shop closes.
Yeah.
So I used to be a till packer, and then I got promoted to cashier, the first male cashier at that shop. And then, which is quite weird at the time. I mean, now that's maybe normal, but it was quite foreign at the time. And then I got promoted to a supervisor, the first male supervisor as well for that shop. And also like the youngest, I mean, I was still in my teens, having to supervise these old tannies that's been there for like jongs already.
Yes.
So it was an interesting journey with Shoprite Checkers. And then, like I said, I went to go work at the Fashini Group. Okay, so the Fashini Group, I was there for 12 years. I started off as a service desk agent, and then I ended up as a project manager.
Okay.
So yeah, I worked my way through the ranks, service desk agent, and then I did desktop support, and then a desktop team leader, and then service desk manager, and then project manager.
Okay. And can you take me back to the course you studied at CPUT?
I did information technology. So I got a National Diploma in information technology.
And it's a four-year course?
No, it's a 3-year course normally, but what had happened was at the time when I applied, they were full. So what they offered for like a bunch of students, which was weird, they offered them like a sort of bridging course, a bridging program. So instead of going to the main campus for your first year, you went somewhere else to like a secondary campus in Bellville. And then you started, and then once you passed that year, you did your 3 years at the main campus. So that's why it's a 3-year degree, but we were on it for 4 years.
Okay, cool. And then your most recent role that you had, was it in IT still, or?
It was in IT. No, so I've been in IT in my, how long? 18-year journey. Has it been 18 years? 2001 till 2020, 19 years. Yeah. So I've always been in IT, but not necessarily what people think IT is about. So I'm on the softer side of IT. I don't do programming. I don't do technical stuff like networking or databases or coding. I do the softer side of IT, the management side of things. So I'll manage the people that do those technical things.
Yeah, so like a tech lead or sort of that department.
So my last function was a service delivery manager. I was the go-between the client and the technical team.
Okay.
So I take the technical I'll take what the client says and translate that into something that the IT guy can understand, and then vice versa. What the IT guy speaks technically, I'll try to translate that into a more understandable language for the client.
For the client, and so that they can understand how you're going to get their products done or whatever.
Correct.
Okay. And so when you think about like the world of IT and how broad it is, because you literally can go any direction. If somebody's listening to, a young person is listening to this chat, what sort of tips would you give somebody who's thinking about it, but they're not, 100% sure this is the way to go for them? So any tips that you can share?
So a tip that I would recommend is do not do it the way I did it. So I looked at the industry as it is now, and I went in with that understanding that, okay, at the moment they are looking for X, okay? And they're looking for X now in 2020, you start studying X. But by the time you graduate, by the time you are ready to practice a skill in X, the industry has moved on already from that requirement, and now they're onto something new. And then when you're ready to join the work environment or the workforce, you know X, but now they're looking for Y, or they're looking for W, or they're looking for something else.
Yes.
So if you're going to IT, because it keeps moving forward and it keeps evolving, you need to try to understand, okay, X is now, but what will happen after X?
Wow.
What might happen after X, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's what you plan for. So if you're at a young age, don't plan for this. Plan for
what's coming.
Try to think of what will happen, of what's coming, so
Mm.
that if you plan for that, you're at the beginning of the people that they want.
Yes.
So people talk about gamers and they talk about social media. So learn to be productive in a social media environment. We'll learn to be productive in a game. Necessarily, because now at the moment Zoom, right? And people want to belong to Zoom, but after Zoom, what's the next big thing, for example? So that's how they should think. That's what's next, so that, because they're not ready now, I assume they'll be ready in a couple of years' time. So don't be, so don't be fit for something now. Be fit for something later, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes perfect sense. And I'm wondering, like, where do they access that sort of information? Is it just about, you know, what's trending in the social media, but also, you know, do we have conversations about like where the world of technology is going with young people, to almost set them up for that decision making? What is it that I want to study now so that I'm relevant later?
And I think that's a conversation for your type function, in terms of how do you guide the youth, but it's more importantly a question for them. What do I do now so that I'm relevant later? And it shouldn't be too far away from their passions and from what they feel strongly about. Like the gap shouldn't be too far apart.
Yes.
You can feel passionate about something if you're passionate about designing or about fashion.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a certain trend now in terms of fashion, but what will be the new trend? So don't study to do boots. Study how to make the concept of a shoe. No, that's a weird example, but that's what I'm getting at, you know?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think I haven't looked at it in that way before. Is often it's, you know, it's the now that we are focused on.
It's the now, yeah. And
and you
so like when we engage with youth and with okay, when I say youth, I mean like primary school or early high school, right? We encourage them to want to grow up to be doctors. We encourage them to want to grow up to be pilots and those kind of things. But we don't encourage them to grow up to be enablers of a doctor or enablers of a pilot or an enabler of, you know, so, and that's where the job market is enabling a practice of some sort.
Yes, sure.
Because then you're more versatile, you're more, people want you more because you are an enabler of another profession.
Sure. And as you have journeyed now for the last 19 years, have you found that you're needing to do further certifications to keep up with how the technology world is trending, or?
So I mean, I've been on studies through the 19-year journey. So I've always, every year I've been on a course, personal growth course, or it's a technical course like databases or networking. But I've constantly been on courses. I think even this year now, I'm learning a new language, for example. So I've always been training and learning and challenging new thoughts.
And I think I want to point out that that's interesting, because even though you have identified now you're not in the technicality, you know, you're not doing the technical parts of it, but as a manager and perhaps as a leader in that role, you need to be aware of all these various
Yeah, correct.
platforms. You have to be aware of what's out there now, what's the next, best thing that makes sense for the clients. And so
Correct.
I guess you're pointing out that you a lifelong learner. You like learning never stops for you,
No.
and maybe that's something to think about. That if you are wanting to go into sort of an industry like IT, more the technical side of things, I think expect to not just stop with learning the degree that you
Correct.
studied.
Correct. No, because always try to ask yourself what next. So one of my life coaches early on, I was fortunate enough to meet this guy, life coach, and he always asked us or challenged us in a certain way to ask, once we felt proud of an accomplishment or we boasted about something that we've achieved, he always asked, so what? And that was his main motto, like, so what?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm proud of what I'm doing. And he's like, yeah, but so what? So what if you did it? Like, what if you've accomplished it? What's next? So what? That doesn't mean you should stop now. That just means, okay, you've done it. So what? So what's next?
And I mean, the roles today is really what you can almost design your own job description in a way. If you can sell yourself to a company in a different way and be like, this is the skills that I've come with, and I think this is how I can service your company, and I think this is what you need. So
Correct.
it's very flexible, from what I'm understanding what you're saying in that.
Yeah, I mean,
it goes super fast.
It does, and it keeps evolving. That's what I'm saying, is that as you choose a field of study or you choose a career, don't try to limit yourself where you're going to be boxed as something. So, I mean, like HR is a similar box to IT. And even like a doctor is a similar box to IT. So if someone says they're in HR, there's various levels to HR. There's rewards, there's recruitment, there's assessments, and all that.
And it's, I guess, some people say, no, you must find your thing. And some people are saying being a generalist is better. So it's just, I think,
it's just
what you are more towards. I think it just also depends on how you want to and how you work. If you want to focus on one thing, and then that's okay.
No, it is. There's benefits in both. I mean, like my wife, she's a specialist, and so she can get headhunted, or she can get approached for specialist stuff.
Yes.
So specialist stuff is 3, for example, 3 out of 10 functions.
Yeah.
I'm a generalist, so I can apply for 8 out of 10.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Sure. Is there any last things that you are wanting to say about the world of IT? I mean, you have given us some tips, and normally what I do is I just insert links to the college or technicon or university that gets mentioned, perhaps to that particular department. So for example, if they're wanting to then go and further look into IT at CPUT, they can do that. And then also maybe I think one last thing, how like sometimes finances, and I try not to, I think, highlight the issue of finances, because I think we have grown a lot, and NSFAS is there. Were your parents able to cover that for you, or?
Yeah, so they sacrificed quite a bit for me to go to college. My sister also sacrificed as well. So so she gave up her studies for me to go study.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was quite fortunate in that sense that through their sacrifice, I was able to go to college. But there are bursaries out there and like student loans and stuff, but I can't speak to that, because like I said, I was blessed enough.
Yeah. And I'll link some links to NSFAS, and I'll try and locate some bursaries that specifically go into that niche of IT, and link it,
Just something that I touched on earlier that I think it's important is that, like I mentioned, that your passion and personality shouldn't be too far away from a job that you maybe want to pursue, because I think that one does need a certain type of personality to be comfortable in the world of IT. So you won't necessarily, and I know that I'm stereotyping, but it is like this, that you won't necessarily find a bubbly, outdoor, fun-loving person sitting in a corner doing coding.
Yeah.
You know, so that person will struggle to adapt. That person will find it difficult to go through the day just sitting there, wanting to be outdoors but sitting in coding. So you need to look at your personality, or you need to understand what you enjoy and see how that fits into an IT thing.
And I think that's an important thing you're highlighting, because I mean, as young, say as a 16-year-old high school person, you still, I know you are getting to know yourself and getting to know what it is you're passionate about. Sometimes you haven't even figured all of that out.
True, yeah, true.
And so it's just to take a time and pause and reflect, what is my personality type, and what drives me, what gets me up in the morning.
Yeah.
And if that's gaming, you can definitely, fulfill it in gaming.
Yes, there's so much work in gaming. It's ridiculous. And you get paid to play a game as well at the moment. But that's...
There is automation or things like that might suit your personality. So thank you so much.
You are most welcome. Thank you for reaching out. I hope I was able to provide some kind of stimulus or thinking to anyone listening. Yeah, so I'm not saying what I said is right. It's just, it was to get you thinking.
Yes, and that's your story, and that's how we're learning with these real life examples. Because I always say, it's easy for you to go and read up on a university's page about IT, but I feel like the real life examples in people sharing about their journey is a bit more relatable. And not to say that your navigation through life will be the same, but
Correct.
there will definitely be stuff we can throw out from what you've shared.
Yeah, I mean, and if any of your participants or students, if they have further questions, you can just forward them to me. You can forward the questions to me, and I'll try to answer as best as possible.
Thanks so much for your time, and I really appreciate it.